Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome to the Fox 5 Live Zone. I'm your host, Guy Lambert. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Coming up on the show today, the latest on the passing of Pope Francis. Did you hear? DC, when it comes to innovation, apparently it's the place to be. We'll have a wallet hub expert join us to tell you all about that. And shall I say she's a TikTok star on the rise? She's also a stay-at-home mom. You'll meet her right here on the Live Zone. All that and more coming up on the show, but how about we kick it off with a little weather, shall we? Taylor Grenda joining us for just that right here on the Live Zone. Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you as well. I mean, we had such a nice weekend. I know we didn't see a whole lot of sunshine, but it was dry.
It was dry.
Yeah. We'll take
kind of cloudy too.
Kind of cloudy, I know. So unfortunately, we're not going to see a whole lot of sunshine either for today, but I do think most of the daytime will be dry. So this afternoon, I do think we should be in the low 60s for most of you for a couple of hours. Then eventually we'll see temperatures spike into the 70s. So cloudy conditions currently, as you can see right here on satellite radar imagery, showing dry conditions right now. Most of the daytime will be dry. It's later this evening that we're going to see a front kind of approach. You can see where that's sitting right now towards the Midwest. It will shift eastward, bring us that shower threat into this evening, and it's going to last overnight as well. So don't be surprised while you're sleeping tonight if some of you hear some rumbles of thunder or just really some rain coming down. So let's time it out for you. Here we go. The rest of today will feature plenty of dry weather. It's after 9 p.m. where we'll see those showers arrive. Should be intermittent overnight and through about daybreak tomorrow we'll see some showers. And then after that, we're going to dry out for the rest of Tuesday. We might not see a whole lot of sunshine, but we're still going to see conditions kind of warm up and we'll return to the 80s on Tuesday. For today, though, will be a little bit cooler, 74 degrees with mostly cloudy skies. It will eventually get a little bit breezy. That's due to that cold front approaching. It kind of gets breezy all around it. So some showers possible late. Here we go with the overnight low temperatures. It will be a little bit wet out there, upper 50s to low 60s. So kind of cool, but not that bad. And then here we go heading into tomorrow. It will still be a warm day. We'll get back to the low 80s, so well above average high temperatures. And I do think Tuesday will be altogether a nice day for outdoor plans, especially once we kick these showers in the morning out of here. 7-day forecast. I know we're asking for some sunshine. That will return midweek, Wednesday into Thursday, and then we're going to be watching another front that arrives Friday and into part of the weekend that could bring our next chance for showers and storms. And then look at that, we have a much cooler trend that starts to settle in by Sunday and throughout next week.
I don't know about you, but I'd rather deal with rain versus snow.
With you, I'll take it any day.
Taylor Grenda with all things weather right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Guys, if you haven't already done so yet, please make sure you download the Fox Local app. That way you can take your weather on the go any and everywhere you go. And yet again, wishing you a good afternoon on this somber Easter Monday. Pope Francis passing away this morning at the age of 88. The pontiff's passing comes after his months-long battle with double pneumonia. The illness caused him to spend more than a month in the hospital. Fox 5 obviously bringing you the latest on Pope Francis's passing. As many of you know, the Pope was discharged from the hospital back in March and visibly frail, yet he still emerged Easter Sunday to deliver a blessing at St. Peter's Square, giving people hope he would be with us for quite some time. Back in 2015, you may recall Pope Francis visited right here in the nation's capital. He was treated like a rock star. The White House visit was only the third time a pope had entered the president's home. Pope Francis became the first pope to address a joint session of the United States Congress during that trip. Earlier this morning, our very own Melanie Alwing discussed the Pope's visit to D.C. some 10 years ago.
10 years ago, 2015, it was a scene of joy. Today, very somber. Just a little while ago, the flag here was lowered outside the Apostolic Nunciature, which is, we colloquially call it the Vatican Embassy here in D.C. But when the visit was here in 2015, you mentioned prominent Catholics in politics. We had Nancy Pelosi, we had Joe Biden. We also had Secretary of State John Kerry, all prominent Catholics in the administration when they visited D.C. 10 years ago. Now, some of the messages, if you look at some of the video from that visit, were immigration, climate change, fighting against the death penalty. The streets were filled with the faithful, hoping for a glimpse or a blessing from the Holy Father. Francis was the first pope to address a joint session of Congress. He was also the first Jesuit, the first to call himself Francis. And let me show you one of those iconic moments from the Pope's visit here. And bringing her in for a special hug and blessing from the Pope. And that was just so, and just emblematic of his embrace of the everyday person, of the young people. Here's a photo that I took from this very spot in 2015. When Francis came out to greet the crowds, he stopped to talk to some children from one of the Orthodox churches and actually took a selfie with them. And a lot of us were thinking that that may have been one of the very first Pope selfies, since that was just becoming a thing at the time. But again, the messages were so important. We have seen everything here very, very quiet this morning, a very somber mood. I've only seen one person walking into the door this morning. We did see somebody come and leave flowers, though, at the gate. You can see them right here. And we expect that perhaps during the day more people will come in many spots throughout Washington, D.C. You know, the Pope's final message was about peace worldwide, global disarmament, and the release of prisoners, combating hunger, caring for the poor, and appealing to people in power to use their resources to help those in need. And people that were passing by and paying their respects this morning told us that is the message and the legacy and the lesson that they hope continues.
And as we know, Pope Francis was known for being progressive on issues involving migrants, women, gay rights, sexual abuse in the church, and scientific issues such as the Big Bang Theory and evolution. In all, some 1.4 billion Catholics now mourn the death of the Pope. The Catholic Church has now entered a 9-day time period of mourning. President Trump now ordering flags to be flown at half-staff as a mark of respect for the memory of Pope Francis. We'll take our first quick break and continue to reflect on the life and legacy of Pope Francis, gone at the age of 88. We'll be right back. Back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, we are taking a live look at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, where the church bells are now tolling some 88 times, the age that Pope Francis has now passed. We know some 1.4 billion Catholics are now mourning the death of the Pope. The Catholic Church now entering a 9-day time period of mourning. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Timothy Allen Simon back here on the Live Zone. Sir, good to see you. Happy Monday to you.
Good to see you, Guy, and happy Easter Monday to you.
Let's reflect on the life and legacy of Pope Francis. Obviously, a man that has done so much and is remembered for so many things. We know that he focused on migrants, women's issues, gay rights, if you will, and so much more. If you would, in a nutshell, what the man known as Pope Francis did and what he will be remembered by in your mind, sir.
Well, I think particularly as a Jesuit, and I'm a product of Jesuit education, the Society of Jesus, I think he really embraced the message of St. Ignatius Xavier, St. Ignatius Loyola, some of the, traditional, compassionate leaders of this Society of Jesus and the Catholic Church, putting a major emphasis on the needs of the voiceless, the poor, the migrants. And I like the fact that you use that term in particularly in Europe and the United States. And if you look at the history of the countries that most of the migrants are coming from, they are countries that were colonized by the West. So not just from a religious standpoint, I think from a political standpoint as well, he viewed that there was an obligation of the wealthy nations to embrace and support those who are fleeing poverty, political affliction, oppression, and other things. In this regard, I think he stands out. He also had a strong compassion for the addicted. One of his statements that touched me the most is he said, if you see a drugless home addict on the, a drug addicted homeless person on the streets who's asking for money, many would say, no, that money's going to go to drugs. He said, well, if it does, that may be the only comfort that they have. So you encourage those to support those who live on our streets, literally, and suffer mental health and addiction. He also encouraged priests to bless gay couples or same-sex couples, never really directing the church to recognize gay marriage. But be that as it may, he took the dark cloak off of the fact that there are gay Catholics or LGBTQ Catholics within this 1 billion people that practice Roman Catholicism. So yes, he was a man who I think of the Gregory Porter song, "Take Me to the Afflicted." He is a man who really wanted to be aligned with the meek, and as the Bible says, it's the meek that will inherit the earth.
Wow. Truly a man of the people. We know that time and time again he would offer to pay for his own hotel room along with wanting to take the public bus. How often does that happen, Timothy, with regard to the Pope? The church has major global influence, as we all know, and furthermore, the Pope can influence matters like social justice, as you just pointed out, political discourse, and religious freedom, influencing laws and public opinion. Now, we see that the Pope is no longer with us. The question now arises, will we see a shift with regard to all of that?
Well, that'll be up to the College of Cardinals. Even though we call it the papal monarchy, in fact, there is an electoral process that will begin after the period of mourning and prayer. I think the church has some challenges here. The growing population in the Catholic Church is largely in Africa, the Philippines, Latin America, where, by the way, Pope Francis was from Argentina, even though his family migrated from Italy. I think the challenge will be for the church to, where will the Pope come from? And where will this Pope be aligned? Will it continue with the traditional European papal monarchy, or will it finally open up to the global South and other areas of the world that have a growing Catholic faith? I think that's going to be critical for the church, quite frankly, and I believe that is probably going to be on the plate of the College of Cardinals as they go into the process of making the selection after mourning.
Yeah, speaking of the College of Cardinals, Timothy, we know any baptized Roman Catholic male can be elected Pope. However, since 1379, every pope has been selected from the College of Cardinals. Yet again, interesting information to pass along as we now await to find out who the next pope will be after 9 days of mourning. Timothy, I got about 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure we touch on other political topics. In this case, President Trump now pressing ahead with his immigration crackdown, facing outcry over the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, obviously the man who was wrongly deported to El Salvador, in the fallout from a Supreme Court ruling this weekend that, in essence, halted his use of a wartime authority to speed deportations. With regard to Mr. Garcia, Timothy, does this really just boil down to due process and or the lack thereof?
It does. I think even those fighting for the return of Mr. Garcia are not claiming his innocence. As you know, he has a domestic violence allegation against him while he was here in the United States from his wife. But they're stating that he has a right to his day in court. And that due process clause is for persons, not citizens, and he was apprehended on American soil. I think what you see here is a game or a tug-of-war between President Bukele, who sides with Donald Trump apparently, and our courts and many members of Congress who have concerns that the removal of due process and the deportation of migrants are a slippery slope. We have seen incidents where those who are legally in the United States have been deported without their right to stand before a magistrate, or as we say in the law, a tribunal of competent jurisdiction. So I do think that this is bigger than Mr. Garcia. It's even bigger than the issue of immigration or illegal immigration. It really comes down to the core of our Constitution, that every person deserves that day in court.
Yeah, yet again, very interesting. It's we day by day we sit on the edge of our seat to wait to find out how all of this will play out. We'll end with this, and that is a defiant Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, actually attacking leakers and slammed the media this morning amid reports that he used a second signal group chat to discuss classified military plans. Now, among those said to be a part of that group chat, his wife and lawyer. The White House said Trump still has full confidence in Hegseth and stands strongly behind him. Talk about a major mess, Timothy.
I think what's also come out in the New York Times coverage is that he has relatives who are now working in the Department of Defense. And what was known is that he brought his wife into very sensitive briefings with countries, some of those countries actually being adversaries. Yes, there has been a breach. Whether the administration wants to prove it or not, as you recall, Hillary Clinton using a separate server brought enormous condemnation from Republicans and even some Democrats. There seems to be a double standard here with Secretary Hegseth, who seems to, like the Trump administration, wants to challenge what has been the decorum or protocol of secretaries, and particularly secretaries of defense and the Pentagon, which have typically been very private and exclusive because of the risk to national security. I think you will see a public relations campaign to try to rebuild his character, which has been questioned by many, particularly those who voted against him in his confirmation, and to try to steer the Department of Defense back towards what is reflective of its history. And by the way, that history has an enormous amount of diversity in it, not just amongst African Americans, but from this great mosaic of what we call America. We'll see where that goes. If President Trump continues to stand behind him, because he is very loyal to President Trump, and that seems to be the primary criteria in this administration, or will the president begin to distance himself from his behavior? President Trump has almost 4 more years in office. I'm willing to wager the first.
Well, loyalty and poll numbers, we know that matters to the president as well. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. Timothy Allen Simon, kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, sir. Make it a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
Well, Palestinian Orthodox Christians gathered yesterday to attend Easter service at a Greek Orthodox church in Gaza City. This as Israeli strikes continued. This marked the second Easter, if you will, since the war between Israel and Hamas began more than a year and a half ago. As it currently stands, Israeli strikes on Gaza have killed more than, count them, 90 people since Friday. The church has been home to displaced people for the last 18 months. Joining us to discuss this now and so much more is Jonathan SACERDOTI, British broadcaster, journalist, and TV producer back here on the Live Zone. Happy Easter Monday to you, Jonathan. Always good to see you, sir.
And happy Easter to you and all your viewers.
Jonathan, one of the big headlines today is that we now know the Prime Minister, obviously Benjamin Netanyahu, is insisting fighting won't end until Hamas is destroyed, derailing experts, if you will, who say, well, you could fool Hamas with fake promises to end the war and then get the hostages back and then go back to fighting. To which you say what, sir?
Netanyahu gave this speech, which he pre-recorded before the end of Saturday, before the end of the Sabbath in Israel, that was to be played out across the national news in Israel. And in that speech, he did make reference to that idea, which is one that's been really put about quite a lot over the last 18 months. That is to say that a deal with Hamas could release the hostages and then Israel could go back to fight anyway, effectively fooling or lying to Hamas. But he wanted, I think, to put that idea to bed completely once and for all. And so he said why that was not really a possibility. He said that Hamas had just rejected another potential plan, another potential ceasefire that would have seen some of the hostages remaining in captivity in Gaza released. He said that was the Witkoff plan and that it was rejected by Hamas because one of the things that Hamas wants is not just that Israel ceases the war completely, effectively surrendering, as he put it, but also they want international reassurances. They want something like a UN Security Council resolution that says that Israel couldn't go back to war. And that if that was in place, of course, Netanyahu is saying, the whole world, the international community simply wouldn't tolerate Israel going back to war. And to point really to what happened over the last 18 months, he said that Israel's war now was the most justified war possible after what happened on October the 7th, 2023. And yet international support for that quickly waned. We saw many countries, including the US under Biden's administration, really withdrawing some of the support it had initially given. He said if that was the case then, imagine how much worse it would be now if there was this international reassurance that Israel's withdrawal from Gaza and effective surrender was meant to be permanent and then they went back to fight. No, he said that Israel has to keep fighting, that Israel has to keep going here in order to get rid of Hamas from the Gaza Strip and to release those hostages. But those things are looking increasingly impossible, certainly both of them at once.
Jonathan, we also know the Prime Minister vowed in that 12-minute speech you just made mention of that he remained committed to preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and slammed a recent criticism of his failure to attack Iranian nuclear facilities. Is that the case, and is that something that we should continue to see coming from the Prime Minister?
Again, we've got these discussions, these negotiations going on between the US and the Iranians, and that's something that's seen to be both at odds with the Israeli position under Netanyahu, but also we know that President Trump is pretty much in line with Netanyahu's outlook in many ways, certainly much more than the previous administration. So many aren't sure exactly what happens next. There is the argument that's made a lot in Israel that now is the time for a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, because Israel has struck Iran in the recent months. It did take out a lot of its air defense potential. It also, in drawing that fire of many missiles from Iran, has depleted its stocks of those ballistic missiles. And so some have said that this is the time to do it before they can replenish and restock. And indeed, that if there are negotiations ongoing, the Islamic Republic of Iran lies and uses negotiations, as it has done in the past, simply to stall for time. That really, if negotiations are to be successful, there needs to be a strike before rather than afterwards. So there's that fear, I think, among Israelis, among many in Israel, that Israel is not really able to make the strike that perhaps it's best able to do strategically now because of the ongoing negotiations. So Netanyahu was keen to point out in that speech that he said Israel will not retreat, not even a millimetre, and that it really isn't a case that he is afraid to act, that he has been afraid to act in the past, as some of his critics have said, but instead he said all the things that he's done over the years were criticised when he did them in relation to Iran, but actually he said that were it not for his moves in the past, Iran would already have had nuclear weapons 10 years ago. So there is this back and forth, there's some uncertainty, but those who are close to Trump seem to be saying to the Israelis, hold tight, We have your back. We agree with you. No nukes, no nuclear potential, no enrichment. But there have been mixed messages coming out of those negotiations. And there is the fear that the Iranians are master negotiators and may use this to really effectively get something which is not optimal, not ideal for both Israel and the US.
Yeah, very interesting. Jonathan, we'll end with this, and I want to revert back to the hostages that are yet again being held by Hamas. We know the Hostages in Missing Families Forum happen to be strongly critical of Benjamin Netanyahu's comments about a hostage release, stating the Prime Minister did not articulate any plan to free their loved ones from Hamas captivity. Yet again, does it appear as though the Prime Minister is losing support where he needs it the most?
Indeed, there is that sense. The Hostage Family Forum is traditionally somewhat against Netanyahu and his government and their plans for the war. There is another group of hostage families, the Tikva group as they're called, which has been traditionally far more supportive, but even they have now made a statement which was very critical of Netanyahu, and you can understand that desperation from those family members who have still got loved ones being tortured and held in Gaza. Many of them actually have been killed already. Netanyahu in that speech said that we have returned, he said, 196 hostages, including 147 alive. So he did want to underline the fact that his efforts have returned many hostages. But I think that realistically, perhaps part of this speech was, without saying so, a preparation for the Israeli public that maybe all those hostages may not in fact be released in the end or come home, which is really an unbearable and unthinkable thought for Israeli society as much as for many of us around the world. Yeah. But I think that perhaps that's what he's starting to prepare the Israeli public for. If this stage of the war in Gaza is to increase and intensify, if he is to try to convince the nation, and remember it's a conscript army, a nation who are going to have to keep returning the call to fight in Gaza, people who've spent many hundreds of days already fighting there, people with ordinary jobs who are going to have to go back there. He's going to have to convince the Israeli public that he has tried everything and that this is the only option, that this war is something that they will personally need to keep fighting. And so I think part of that is the idea that he needs to convince the population that he is trying everything, he has tried everything, and that there are no other options to get back the hostages. Now, that is an extremely hard sell for a country which is undoubtedly war-weary and feeling the brunt of the ongoing war. But of course, there are still those in Israel who know that this is a fight for its survival and that they are fighting an enemy which doesn't often give you good options, just bad ones and worse.
A tall task indeed. Yet again, we have been speaking with Jonathan SACERDOTI, British broadcaster, journalist, and TV producer, joining us on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks.
All right, guys. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, my next guest is making a big splash on social media in a major way. Shall I say she's a social media influencer? One that is far from the normal influencer. You see, this social media star is also a stay-at-home mom. Did I mention she made over $45,000 by posting TikTok videos in the past year? Now she's sharing her secrets to success. She has profitable content ranging from beauty and lifestyle to comedy and reality TV recaps. But don't let me tell it. She joins us now on the Live Zone. Please welcome Lori Alderman right here on the LZ. Good to see you, Lori. Welcome to the show.
Great to see you.
I got to say before we get off this thing, I need your autograph because you were truly a star in a major way. How cool is this?
It's really cool. I can't pretend like it's not.
So I know somewhat of your story. Obviously, you're a stay-at-home mom. High five going out to you, doing great things that moms do that stay at home. Team stay-at-home mom right here. But with that being said, you've been able to find a way to really, let's say, maximize your experience and make a lot of money from doing just that.
Well, my story is that before I had kids, way back in 2000, my trajectory, my path was I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. I wanted to do a sitcom. I was a stand-up comedian and an actress. And then when I had my first baby, I was well out of my comfort zone and realized that I needed to take a break and just focus on that. So I did that for only like 22 years. And
Wow.
then when my last child went to college and I empty nested, I was left with the thought of what am I going to do with the next chapter? And I didn't want to go back to stand up. And I didn't want to necessarily ever leave my house. And since I was a huge consumer of TikTok, I thought I can just do this from my bed. And I opened up the camera. I had never used a laptop, a computer. Technologically, I am completely, let's just say, unsavvy. So the learning curve for the technology of it all, that was really hard. The content and the humor came pretty naturally. And despite my family being humiliated, I just sort of thought to myself, what do I have to lose? And it happened in November of 23, and here we are in 25, and I'm having a great time.
Oh my gosh, and we're loving every second of it. Can I say life goals? You look that up and that's what I'm going to see, right? Your picture right there. I mean, I want to do what you're doing. I was always told never make mention of a woman's age. And so in this case, I'm going to say you are a middle-aged adult. In
56.
Okay, cool. You said it, not me. In this case, you are crushing it in a space that's often skewed younger. And so with that being said, why do you think so many people resonate with what you do?
Because there's a lot of women who are over 50, over 55. And this should be, I highly recommend, a time in anyone's life, over 50, male or female, where they lean into not giving a you-know-what and doing what feels fun and authentic. And so they see in me someone who is their age doing something really scary, doing it in front of millions of people. And it kind of makes that 50 over have our own cool area on social media. It's been really for the younger ones. And I think that's why they love it, because they see themselves in me and that there's hope after 50, after 55.
Yeah, gosh, hope in a major way. Why? Case in point, look at this. One of the most watched videos is a review of Fox's Extracted with, get this, 2.5 million views. Yet again, what was it that you did that got so many eyes on that thing?
The beauty in what I did is I took a passion and an addiction, and I'm making money and I'm making content. So I have been a lover of TV since Gilligan's Island and I Love Lucy, 3 channels on the TV, black and white. I mean, I'm old. And so I've always loved TV. I've loved to share my recommendations. And with that, I love reality. So this was Fox asking me what I thought about their new reality show. Lucky for them, I love it.
We love you even more. I need a dose of you each and every day. This is awesome. You have worked with, let's see, QVC, Macy's, Paula's Choice, to name a few. Excuse me, those are really big names. And yet again, they came knocking on your door to say, we need help.
Well, at my, not even my age, I think I've always been a very real, authentic person. I have a terrible memory and ADD, so I can't lie because I won't remember the lie. So I only post, I only create, I only partner with companies that I actually use and that it's authentic. And so those companies are companies that I use. And I love sharing beauty tips, tricks, hacks, and secrets. And I think those companies realize it.
All right, so we'll end with this, and that is any and everybody watching that happens to be over the age of 55 and they're saying, when I grow up, I want to be just like Lori. Do tell, what is it that folks need to do in order to follow in your footsteps and make a buck or two?
Go through a lot of therapy. I really mean that because I think that, like many women and men, I think that I lost myself in parenthood. It wasn't something that came naturally to me. I adore my two daughters, but I got lost in it and I lost myself. And that was on me. I needed to do the proverbial, put your air on first before the kid next to you in the airplane. And so it was when I empty nested that I had some really good trauma therapy to put Humpty Dumpty back together. And I think if people really lean into that and make sure that they're their best selves, then whether you want to be a content creator or an astronaut for 10 minutes, timely, you can do it, but you have to have those mental stabilities and tools that I had lost for a while. And I think that's why I'm doing this well now, because I feel mentally healthy.
Yeah. No, that's just so awesome and so encouraging. I think so many folks can hear and see what you're saying and at the same time say, you know what, I can relate to that. I lied. I said I was going to end with that, but I got to ask you, what's your guilty pleasure with regard to, let's say, reality TV right now? Anything up your alley?
I'm a Bravo-holic. So I love, even though I'm 56, I go all the way over to Summer House, to the OGs of the Housewives and everything in between. And you say it's a guilty pleasure, but I'm not guilty, but maybe I should be.
Absolutely love it. Lori, folks that want to follow you, how would one go about to do so?
So it's at Lori Alterman. There's two N's, same price. You get two N's on Instagram and on TikTok.
I wonder if it stands for nice and naughty. I guess we'll just have to
What
find
it
out
really
by
stands
following.
for is it's not my real name. My kids were embarrassed of what I did and they made me change it.
Gosh, you're so much fun. Lori Alderman joining us right here on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you for having me. I
You're
love
welcome.
Fox.
All right, guys. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. right, guys, welcome back to Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, my next guest really needs no introduction. That's because he's a Grammy and Emmy award-winning baritone, dubbed as a passionate performer with a voice that is electric hole-filling. Now he brings his talents along with that amazing voice right here to the nation's capital as he returns to the Washington National Opera as the title character Porgy in Porgy and Bess. It happens from May 23rd to the 31st. Please join me in welcoming none other than Mr. Reginald Smith Jr. Good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good to see you. How are you doing this morning?
You know, I've been waiting all this afternoon to hear that voice. I wanted to make sure my audience heard it as well, and boy, did you come in a major way. It's no secret, sir. You love doing what you do, and you do it oh so well. In this case, I'm making reference to singing, and gosh, you do such an amazing job at it. Do you ever wake up and just say, dear God, why me? How did this happen? How did I get this amazing voice?
I say, dear God, thank you so much for this amazing voice. It's a tremendous gift that I certainly did not earn, but I am definitely grateful for. And it's a wonderful life and career, even with its ups and downs. But it's really a joy. It's really exciting.
At what age did you realize you had that gift?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I grew up singing my entire life. I come from a very musical family, and I grew up singing in church, but also in school. And for me, and many people know, I always wanted to be a teacher. So I wanted to be a music teacher, and I went to school for such. But fortunately, when I was in high school, I was able to have voice lessons, and I was able to see lots of different performances of different art forms. And I was sort of bitten by the opera bug, if you will. And I had other people that sort of pushed me into more performing, and I'm grateful that they did. But yeah, so I would say that music has always been a cornerstone of my life, and so for that I'm also very grateful.
It's always that person that's doing that little pushing, that little nudge that helps you get into that position. I'm curious, when deciding to take on a role, what is it that intrigues you?
Well, for me, I have to be attracted to the character and attracted to the story. I often play a lot of fathers, a lot of bad guys, which Porgy is not a bad guy nor a father, which is also very interesting to do something a little different. But the role of Porgy is so complex, and it's so deeply emotional that when I look at a character like this, I ask myself, what can I bring to the role? How can I make it different? Can I make a statement? Can I say something through this role? And so that's the first place where I start. I start with the story and the character. Then, of course, very important, I have to see, does it fit in the vocal range? You know, as much as I would love to do the Bruno Mars life biopic, you know, I think it might be a little bit out of my range. Yeah. You know, singing Prince the musical or something, you know. But so that's another important part of it, is does it fit the voice? And then on top of it, it's the length of the role. You know, like a role like Porgy, you're on stage from the beginning all the way to the end. And so it's, will you have the stamina, and will you have the time to learn the role? And so those are the things that really come into play. But this is a role that I've waited to do, and that I have wanted to do for quite some time now. So
yeah,
hopefully, you know, I'm ready for it now. Fingers crossed.
Oh, you're beyond ready, sir. Come on. With regard to Porgy and Bess, this isn't the first time around, if you will. I mean, this has been brought forth time and time again, and every time it gets bigger and better, in my opinion. Any pressure for you? I know you touched on it, but yet again, this is a major production, and, well, you happen to be one of the stars surrounding it.
Yeah, you know, one of the fortunate things is I actually made my professional opera debut at Cincinnati Opera in Porgy and Bess. And I sang the role of Lawyer Frazier, and I've done the role of Jim at the Metropolitan Opera, and I've sung the role Jake 4 or 5 times, including in this production with Francesca Zambello's production of Porgy. I'm familiar with the production. I'm very familiar with the opera and Catfish Row, but this is my first time undertaking Porgy in Porgy and Bess. And that comes with a certain amount of pressure that you have to carry the role, you have to carry the show. But at the same time, I often think of it like you sit down for dinner, right? You have a plate of food, there's a lot of food. You don't just all of a sudden jump and start eating everything fistfuls, you know? You have a little bit of steak, you might have a little potato, a little broth, and before you know it, you've completed the plate. And so that's kind of how I have to think of approaching learning the role and also presenting the role. Don't think of the macro, you know, think of each scene, each moment, really be present in each thing. And then by the time you know it, the opera's over. So it keeps you from thinking about the big end of the opera, you know, you have the whole scene, and it's a little daunting.
That's funny how you stated
a little
that.
bit.
It's funny how you stated that before you know it, the opera is over, when most of us are saying, no, please don't end. Keep on going. Keep on singing. Anything in particular about the Washington National Opera that really strikes you? Is it something that warms your heart? Is it any different than all the others?
Absolutely. I mean, performing in the nation's capital is always a special event. And this will actually be my debut with the Washington National Opera. I was supposed to be at WNO for when they did Blue. I was cast in that, and I had a health issue that I had to pull out of the show. And glad that things are much better. Glad to be here. But it's something that I've looked forward to, performing in that theater and in the Kennedy Center. And the last thing I've done in DC, I did a concert at the National Cathedral, but even that was a few years ago. And so being back in the DC area is really exciting. And to finally perform at the Kennedy Center and with Washington National Opera is also something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So that's it's sort of an added bonus to doing this role that I've waited for quite some time. So it's my role debut and my house debut at the same time.
Reginald,
No
we'll
pressure.
end with this, and that is those that aspire to follow in your footsteps. Perhaps any encouraging words you can share?
Live life, love life, and always be true to who you are as an artist. You know, I think those are the most important things. The more you live life, the more well-rounded you become as a human being. The more you love life, the more you learn to give and to share. And the more you learn to be true to yourself, you learn to be unmovable, unshakable, undeniable, which takes study. You have to know what you're talking about in order to do that. But it allows you to really stand on your own 2 feet and say, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer, and I'm ready to share it with the world. And that's what it takes to be an artist, in my opinion.
Wow, well said. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. Reginald Smith. He is playing Porgy in Porgy and Bess, yet again set to take place at the Washington National Opera from May 23rd to the 31st. And of course, he was kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. I truly enjoyed this, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Love that voice. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you.
All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, you are taking a look at one of the many masses underway for Pope Francis. Obviously, he is now gone at the age of 88. We'll continue to monitor all things surrounding the Pope throughout the afternoon right here on the Live Zone. Well, for many years, my next guest left you in amazement as he slam dunked his way into your living room while playing in the NBA. Fast forward to right now, an NBA star, Al Harrington, has set the stakes even higher with his brand new cannabis brand. It's dubbed VIOLA. Since then, Mr. Harrington has built a $100 million team of black cannabis entrepreneurs. And just yesterday, yes, yesterday, he launched a partnership with Curo Wellness, which just announced the opening of its third location in Pikesville, Maryland. He joins us right now on the Live Zone. Good to see you, my man, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I got to tell you, this is truly amazing. First of all, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I would watch you for years doing your thing on the basketball court. Now, yet again, you're doing amazing things off the court. I want you to touch on the whole cannabis business just in general and how you got involved, because for our viewers that don't know, it is truly an interesting story that surrounds your grandma.
Well, I tell you what, the cannabis industry is like aging in dog years, if you want me to be honest. I started in 2011, and you know, my inspiration for my company was my 79-year-old grandmother at the time. You know, she had come to see me play when I was playing for the Denver Nuggets. She was, you know, taking all this medication, and we was having a conversation of why she was taking so much medication. And, you know, one of the things that she said to me, she was suffering from glaucoma pain, and I was telling her about, you know, the benefits of cannabis for glaucoma patients. So, you know, we talked about it for a while, and I kept referencing this cannabis, and she finally asked me, she said, well, Al, what is cannabis? And I said, it's marijuana, weed, Grandma. And she said, reefer? She said, boy, you trying to get me to try reefer? You out of your mind. But long story short, the next day she was actually in pain. You know, I had her try it, and I went to go check on her an hour and a half later, and she was downstairs crying, reading her Bible. So, you know, that's what really inspired me to learn more.
Wow.
And, you know, eventually, you know, launched this company, and the company is named after her, which is VIOLA. And to answer your question about the cannabis industry, you know, it ebbs and flows, I think, just like any other industry. You know, there's been good times, there's been bad times. And I think the times that we're in right now is kind of that time of where, you know, we're all trying to figure out, you know, what's the best way to kind of move forward, you know what I'm saying, in the most productive way. But I think at the source of it, we try to make sure like we keep it around wellness and making sure that, you know, it's around helping people, you know, have better lives.
Yeah. Al, it's no secret. Back in our day, and I'm slightly older than you, well, a lot older than you in this case, but back in the day, marijuana was looked as a gateway drug. Now it's really viewed as a drug that can really help people in a non-traditional way.
Yes, for sure. You know, and to your point, you know, I'm from Orange, New Jersey. So, you know, to your point of us being around the same age, you know, we grew up in the Dare era with the Dare dog and all this type of stuff. And, you know, it was something that was very scary to be a part of. But, you know, I think that, you know, as time has, you know, went on and we see that now there's some clinical trials and different things like that, we realize that there's so many medicinal benefits of the cannabis plant. And we just want to continue to humanize the plant so that people feel more and more comfortable about it. You know, I think about a lot of the conversations that I have with all kind of people in all different walks of life that, you know, I convinced them to try cannabis, and it gives them a better quality of life. You know, and, you know, obviously we can't make any claims of that cannabis cures anything or anything like that, but we definitely seen that, especially for athletes. You know, I was a guy that took, you know, Celebrex, which is an anti-inflammatory, for 7 straight years throughout my career.
Wow.
Right. And we all know that, you know, when you read the fine print, there's all kind of, you know, different things that can happen to me as I get older with my kidneys and different things like that. But if I would have been able to use cannabis, you know, I feel like, you know, with the cannabinoid system and the way that cannabis works with our cannabinoid system, I could have had a safer alternative than putting myself at risk for, you know, the later stages in my life.
Yeah. Well, with regard to the new brick and mortar based right there in Pikesville, Maryland, what's different about this shop, let's say, versus the others?
Well, you know what? I think that, for us, we wanted to partner with someone that, we felt was best in class because we want to make sure that we serve the community at the with the highest standards. Curio Wellness, for us, we've been dealing with them for now, since I think about 2022. We've seen the way that they operate with best in class practices, and, that's just what we're all about. So we're really excited with that store in Pikesville, serving the second district, making sure like the community definitely feels safe and comfortable when they come in there and interact with us. And, as you see in the store, not only do we have cannabis products, we also have a wellness center where people can get massages and different things like that. So we definitely just want to allow people to understand that cannabis is not what we thought it was. It doesn't have the same stigma that it had in the past. And we're going to kill people with kindness and service.
Yeah. Al, we'll end with this, and that is, I want you to speak to your career because, gosh, so many times we see athletes, and when they transition, they're not as successful to what they do afterwards, following what they did, in your case, on the basketball court. I would argue, Al, that you are as successful, if not more successful, following your NBA career. What's the blueprint, my man?
Man, one, you got to have an unbelievable belief in God, and let him kind of take the reins. And, to your point, a lot of us, when we retire, we don't know what we want to do next, right?
Oh, shoot. It looks like we lost Al. Yet again, the NBA star. I can tell you what we want to do, and that's we want to get him back on Zoom. But truly, truly a cool guy to take time out to join us. Yet again, he had an amazing career in the NBA, made millions of dollars, and now continues to do just that. As yet again, you see it right there on your screen. The brand new brick and mortar based in Pikesville, Maryland. The cannabis business, at least for him, now worth more than $100 million. Wow, it must be nice. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. On the flip side of that break, Life with Lindsay joins us. Yes, we're talking Celebrity Dish. That's up next, right here on the Live Zone.
The discernment that the next step to be taken would indeed be a step nearer to the God of will, to the will of God, and the fulfillment of his plan, his commandments for us. He knew that maturity is achieved most thoroughly through our struggle with our weakness, and that we do not enter more deeply into the mystery of God by the highway of our own achievements. So he taught us that our pathway has to be that of loving mercy, received and given, because the mercy of God outweighs every burden of our faults. Once asked, "Who is Pope Francis?" he instantly replied, "A sinner." His very last pastoral action just a few days ago was to visit the Regina Coeli prison in Rome, greeting the inmates and declaring that but for the grace of God, he could have been in their place. And then, from this deep trust in the mercy of God, sprang his second most powerful characteristic, hope. He declared this year to be a jubilee year, during which we are to grasp again the wonder of the hope that we are given. Pilgrims into hope is what he called us to be. And this hope is not simply an optimism that all will work out well in the end.
All right, guys, here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, yet again, we will continue to honor the life and legacy of Pope Francis, gone at the age of 88 throughout the afternoon, right here on the Live Zone. Well, it's now 1 minute past 1 o'clock and time for a little Celebrity Dish on a Monday. Joining us, and hey, look who's back. Life with Lindsay back here on the LZ after a much needed and well-deserved vacay. Good to see you, Lindsay.
Thanks, it was, and I appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, but of course, and you got a chance to visit my home state of Virginia, correct?
My home state, I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and raised in
I
Virginia
didn't
Beach,
know
so I
that.
got to go back to I got to go back to the beach even though it was like 60 degrees and freezing. But other than that, it was good to see the beach.
Well, you came the wrong week, Lindsay. It's going to be in the 80s later this week. I'll tell you once we get off air. You just missed out. It's going to be perfect weather here. All right, let's get to it. Another blow to Real Housewives of Potomac star Karen Huger. Now, the Real Housewives of Potomac star has been denied a work release by a Maryland judge. Huger applied for work release as soon as she was eligible, and approval would have transferred her to a more comfortable facility. Now, according to the Washington Post, she has been collecting good behavior credit while behind bars. Her application, by the way, for work release was approved by the corrections officials, and all that remained, Lindsay, was for the judge to sign off. But guess what? A Montgomery County judge defense attorney told the Post, quote, well, she drew the wrong judge, and it was just horrible luck. Too bad for Karen.
Yeah, I mean, this just happens if you ask any average person. I mean, sometimes you just have that judge that is going to make the example out of you, and was the luck of the draw. So I guess, I mean, hopefully she'll just really learn her lesson while she's in there, because she doesn't have much to do. But yeah, she just got one of those judges that were like, I'm going to make an example out of you, and that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I always wonder in the long run, will it be a good thing? I mean, I get it. You're making an example. Has she learned her lesson yet? Don't know that. What we do know is that from several reports, she's really having a hard time behind bars. And I can only imagine. Lindsay, just imagine you or I, we go behind bars and we're not as big as stars as she happens to be. And everything is taken from you, your freedom, your privacy. And I could imagine she is really struggling, and it really goes along with some of the reports that state that's exactly what's happening with her.
Yeah, I would think, I mean, I know I would struggle, but here's the lesson in that. Make good decisions so you don't have to experience that, right?
You got it right. You heard it from our very own Life with Lindsay. Hey, let's talk about the Biebs. In this case, Justin Bieber. Yeah, it was looking really rough during week 2 of Coachella, at least according to some fans who viewed videos of the pop star partying it up. Now, check out the footage posted on social media, which shows the Biebs shirtless with his tatted super slim body as he puffs on what appears to be weed. Dude, look at me. On Sunday, TMZ posted videos and photos of Justin at the same event Friday night in the desert at a private party, but the cameras captured Justin Bieber far away, so you couldn't get a good look at him. But from what I could see, Lindsay, yeah, looks pretty rough to me.
Yeah, no, he looks really bad. And it's very concerning, to be honest. Like, it's not even a joke at this point. It's like, he did not look very, like, in the right state of mind. And I hope that he can get this worked out, because I don't know what's going on, but it did not look good. And it was concerning, the pictures and the videos I saw.
Yeah. Hey, Linda, do you know how old he is?
I don't know. I think he's like 29. He's up either in his upper 20s or, just like 30 or 31.
Isn't that amazing that it seems like he's been around forever, but yet again, he came on the scene, 16 years old, if I could recall, maybe a little bit younger. And gosh, it's just, I just feel bad for the guy. I mean, every time we see him, specifically or especially as of late, he just seems like he's going through a lot. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, it seems like he's going on the decline, and that's, and sometimes celebrities experience this because, like, could you imagine coming up in fame your whole entire life since childhood? It's got to be a lot weighing on him. I just hope that maybe he can get into therapy or something that can help him, because, yeah, he just does not look very well at all.
Yeah, we wish him well. I'm going to say the same thing about him that I've said time and time again about Wendy Williams, and I do not want to report on this show that, dear God, we have lost either one of them anytime in the near future. So I hope he as well. Hey, let's move on to Kim Kardashian, and I cannot believe I'm talking about this, Lindsay. In this case, she may soon be making it to the big screen. Yes, the reality star is rumored to be under consideration for the Bodyguard remake and has reportedly been in several meetings about the film, Lindsay. The original 1992 movie starred Kevin Costner and the late Whitney Houston. According to reports, Taylor Swift was originally suspected to get the role because of her connection to the film's director. Now, talks about a remake for the hit 90s film have been circulating for years. Can you see Kim K on the big screen, Lindsay?
Absolutely not. And we have lots of reasons to protest Kim Kardashian, but this is like, we got to draw the line. Come on, man. Kim Kardashian as the Bodyguard remake. I mean, Whitney Houston was amazing at this role. You can't just throw Kim Kardashian in there. We need like a real actress like Zendaya, Jennifer Lawrence, somebody. Just not Kim K, please, for the love of baby Jesus.
Yeah. So
It's just not.
in her defense, what I will say is that just like Whitney Houston, perhaps if not even more, she knows what it is to deal with fame. She knows what it is to be, let's say, bombarded by the paparazzi. You know, you can't go out just to grab a cup of coffee. You know, so that's all I got for her. Outside of that, I'm with you.
I mean, yeah, you're correct. She does know what that's like, but also it's like she wanted that in her life also. But can she act? I mean, I know she did like the American Horror Story. This isn't the look. This isn't the way we should be going, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, if it happens, I wish her the best. I don't know if I'll check it out if she happens to be in that starring role, but hey, it's another check for her.
Exactly.
She's smiling all the way to the bank. Hey, we'll end with this, Lindsay, and that is, dare I say, Elizabeth Hurley and Billy Ray Cyrus going Instagram official on Easter Sunday, sharing their romance with the world, posting a loved-up picture of them kissing by a fence in a field. Now, the relationship came as a shock to a lot of people. The photo also shows this pair spending a lot of time together. As we know earlier this month, that happened to be the case as well. Both Hurley and Billy Ray have been in a few relationships in recent years since splitting from their spouses. What are you thinking about this, Lindsay?
I'm thinking this is a train wreck waiting to happen, and it's like one of those things where you don't want to look at it, but you keep watching the reality show. That's what this is, because this is very odd, but I'll watch it to see what happens.
That's, you know, you ever think about weird couples, or like how did he end up with her, and like vice?
Yes.
It's just so, hey, but whatever floats their boat.
Right, whatever works, but still, it's definitely going to be a train wreck. I mean, he just got divorced again from the other artist. Her name was Fire Rose or something. So it's just like, Billy Ray he's a train wreck. He just is.
The best part about that is that you said he just got divorced again. So,
yeah, again, literally.
All right, Lindsay, you know what I'm going to ask? You got anything that you got to tell us? You working on anything new?
I am working on something new, and I can't tell you quite yet, but we're almost to the point where I can tell you. So soon I'll tell you.
All right. Well, that's what we call a tease, and yet again, we'll take it right here on the LZ. Truly appreciate ya. Make it a good Monday, Lindsay.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. We'll take a quick break. Hey, we'll be right back. All right, guys, just like that, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. It's a feel-good Monday, and time to find out what's going on in the amazing county of Fairfax County. In this case, Fairfax Now. Joining us, Mr. Vernon Miles, back here on the LZ. Happy Monday to you, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, but
Happy
of course.
to be here.
So obviously, we know that universities, well, they've been in the headlines a lot lately, specifically Harvard University. Apparently, the Trump administration not too happy with Harvard, which I guess I then segue to this, and not stating that they're on Trump's mind, but George Mason University has contacted law enforcement after a student posted an essay on political violence. Yet again, another university now in the spotlight, Vernon.
Yeah, this has been a fascinating couple weeks for George Mason University. Actually, the same thing that Harvard was in the headlines for, George Mason has been as well. But this one was, there's a student at the school who posted a blog asking, when should people do violent resistance against the government? Now, to be clear, they weren't actually saying people should be violent against the government, towards the Trump administration or anything like that. But they were asking questions, and it seemed to suggest that it was time to act violently against the government. That prompted a lot of backlash. Obviously, in conservative circles, there were people who were very upset about that. George Mason University wound up contacting law enforcement. The person who wrote the essay actually posted on X that they had a visit from law enforcement, from the Secret Service. They posted pictures of them with the Secret Service.
Wow.
They were cleared of that, but they later on said that their landlord actually evicted them from their home after the threats of violence just kind of became too much. So it's been a wild saga to follow.
Yeah, you know it's the real deal when the Secret Service comes knocking on your door. I mean, that's something that a lot of folks would probably be concerned about. Not only that person you just made mention of, but those living in and around that surrounding area. We'll keep a close eye on that. Hey, Vernon, you know what I love? Cool events. And in this case, there's one going to be happening in Vienna, which is oh so cool. Do tell.
Oh, I love this. This is, I think it's called Long Table. It's a longest table. That's what it's called. And it's kind of a fascinating community thing. It started off, I believe, in New York was where these programs got started. But the idea is it's like a community potluck. Everybody brings together a dish. They sit around these big long tables. You get to meet your neighbors. Part of this is also to raise food, raise money, and raise awareness for people who live in food deserts, people who don't have access to food like that. And so it should be a big event, a big, good community event.
Yeah, speaking of big, I'm looking at my notes here. Some 400 people are actually going to take part in this thing. The tables are placed smack dab in the middle of Mill Street. Just envision that. You know, you're walking on the sidewalk, you take a look, and you see a long table, if not two, with, you know, some 400 folks sitting there. That's going to be really cool.
That's going to be on Saturday, May 3rd in Vienna. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I wonder if at any point someone's going to say, hey, who made the potato salad? Which typically you don't want to ask. We'll end with this, Vernon. And that is a travel agent pleading guilty over failed George Mason University basketball trip. Now faces, a 20-year sentence behind bars.
Yeah, another George Mason story. Not a good week for them. But this was a travel agent who was supposedly supposed to book their trip for the Bahamas, but the team found out just hours before they were supposed to leave for this trip that it was all a fraud. The person said it was a logistical error, but it turns out it was part of a big Ponzi scheme, collecting money, paying back other people that they'd scammed, but also paying for their own trips. So this is obviously going through the courts. They're going to have to pay restitution to people from George Mason for this case. And yeah, it's a really tough situation for that basketball team.
I wonder, was it really worth it? Was it really worth it to now face all those years?
I have no idea how these people think they're going to get away with it. It's wild to me. Yeah.
You ever heard of the Crooks Are Stupid department? They are now a part of that department. Vernon Miles, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, you can check out all of Vernon's work and so much more at FAIRFAX Now. But yet again, he joins us right here on the live zone. All right, guys, obviously we are remembering the life and legacy of Pope Francis, now gone at the age of 88. We are taking you now to one of the many masses that happens to be currently underway.
The mystery of faith. Therefore, O Lord, as we celebrate the memorial of the saving passion of your Son, his wondrous resurrection and ascension into heaven, and as we look forward to his second coming, we offer you in thanksgiving this holy and living sacrifice. Look, we pray, upon the oblation of your church, and recognizing the sacrificial victim by whose death you will to reconcile us to yourself, grant that we, who are nourished by the body and blood of your Son and filled with his Holy Spirit, may become one body, one spirit in Christ.
May he make of us an eternal offering to you, so that we may obtain an inheritance with your elect, especially with the most blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, with blessed Joseph, her spouse, with your blessed apostles and glorious martyrs, and with all the saints, on whose constant intercession in your presence we rely for unfailing help.
May this sacrifice of our reconciliation, we pray, O Lord, advance the peace and salvation of all the world. Be pleased to confirm in faith and charity your pilgrim church on earth, with Vincent our bishop, the order of bishops, all the clergy, and the entire people you have gained for your own. Listen graciously to the prayers of this family, whom you have summoned before you. In your compassion, O merciful Father, gather to yourself all your children scattered throughout the world.
Remember your servant Pope Francis, whom you have called today from this world to yourself. Grant that he who was united with your Son in a death like his may also be one with him in his resurrection, when from the earth he will raise up in the flesh those who have died, and transform our lonely body after the pattern of his own glorious body. To our departed brothers and sisters too, and to all who are pleasing to you at their passing from this life, give kind admittance to your kingdom. There we hope to enjoy forever the fullness of your glory, when you will wipe away every tear from our eyes. For seeing you, our God, as you are, we shall become like you for all the ages, and praise you without end. Through Christ our Lord, through whom you bestow on the world all that is good.
Through him and with him and in him, O God, Almighty Father, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, all glory and honor is yours forever and ever. Preceptis salutaribus manditi et divina institutione formati audemus dicere. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicur in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicur et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentatione, sed libera nos a malo. Deliver us, Lord, we pray, from every evil. Graciously grant peace in our days, that by the help of your mercy we may be always free from sin and safe from all distress, as we await the blessed hope and the coming of our Savior Jesus Christ. Lord Jesus, Jesus Christ, who said to your apostles, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you. Look not on our sins, but on the faith of your..."
Yet again, one of the many masses currently underway as we remember the life and legacy of Pope Francis, gone at the age of 88. Well, innovation is a principal driver of U.S. economic growth. Did you know the U.S. spends more than $800 billion per year on research and development? This has helped the nation rank third out of 133 countries on the Global Innovation Index, behind only Switzerland and Sweden. That leads me to this, the most innovative states right here in the good old U.S. of A. Joining us to discuss that and so much more is, hey, our guy is back, Mr. Chip Lupo from Wallet Hub, back here on the LZ. Good to see you, Chip.
Good to see you, Guy. Happy Easter Monday to you.
Happy Easter Monday to you as well. I can tell you a lot of folks based right here in the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia going to be smiling ear to ear after hearing about this, and that is all things innovation. And it starts right here in the nation's capital.
It sure does, Guy. And if anyone nationwide is looking for a career option in the STEM industry, the metro area is the way to go. And as you said, it starts right off with DC. Well, first, what we did, Guy, just to set this up, is that we compared all 50 states and Washington, D.C. across two key dimensions: human capital and innovation environment. And then, of course, we applied 25 related metrics, and that ranges from share of STEM professionals, R&D spending per capita, tech company density, those types of things. Washington, D.C. ranks #1 overall out of the 50 states and District of Columbia. And even better news is that within the top 10, Virginia and Maryland made the list. Virginia at 6th, and 7 is Maryland. Now, what sets DC apart is that there's a number of things working in DC's favor right now, and that's that they have the highest share of people employed in STEM. And just for reference, that stands for, of course, science, technology, engineering, math. Has the highest share of people with STEM degrees. More than half of the district residents 25 and over who have college degrees have majored in some form of STEM. Yeah, there's also the money part, too.
Oh, do tell. No, I'm sorry, Chip. Please explain.
Yeah, the money part there, too, is that Washington, D.C. spends a ton of money on innovation. They have the highest research and development spending per capita and the highest venture capital funding per capita, which is a good source for startups.
This is really encouraging news, Chip. I can tell you time and time again on this show, at least, we have addressed the lack thereof with regard to, let's say, teaching the young folk, the children of tomorrow, all about STEM, specifically young girls. And I'm curious, does that play a role into any of this? Now that we know that DC and the surrounding area happens to be in the top 10, should we expect to see, let's say, a boom, if you will, with regard to young folks learning all about STEM?
I would think so. And again, DC, Virginia, and Maryland are all setting the trend here. And in fact, another caveat, another thing in feathering DC's cap is that they have the highest AP exam participation rate among high school students, almost 60%. Now, of course, as you know, these are placement courses. These are courses that you take in high school that if you score well on the advanced placement tests, that you get college credit for it. And a lot of those are tech or STEM related, whether it's math or some types of sciences. So DC has that going for them too. And you mentioned, to your point, Guy, DC also ranks highest into projected STEM job demand. So this kind of plays in just what you were asking. By 2030, DC has the highest projected rate of STEM jobs, followed by Maryland and Virginia at #3.
Yeah. So, Chip, can I ask you, does DC happen to be #1 because, well, quite honestly, we're just the nation's capital? If it happened to be another city, that city would probably take the cake? Or is it something different?
That's an interesting question. I do think that just given where Washington, D.C. is, I mean, it's right there in the heart of the New York, the East Coast corridor. I mean, Boston, New York are not that far away. And, of course, Virginia and Maryland have their own, given the proximity of D.C., they have their own shares of technology companies, which they rank high in. So I think geography has just as much to do with it as the fact, again, D.C., this is where the revenue is generated and where it's spent.
Yeah. Chip, let's jump all the way down to the last state, if you will, which happens to be the state of Mississippi, coming in at number 51. And I know folks are saying, well, there's only 50 states. Well, D.C. happens to be a part of this study as well. So what happened with Mississippi?
Well, it's interesting because Mississippi and its neighboring state, Louisiana, at 50 and 51 respectively, these are low-income states for the most part. They struggle with unemployment and poverty rates, and there's just not enough interest in maybe even infusing any type of venture capital into these states for these type of jobs.
Yeah. Well, yet again, a very interesting study. I would say too bad for them and so good for us. D.C. yet again taking the top spot.
Yeah, the rest of the nation, if you're in the market for a STEM job, look no further than this area. It's 1, 2, and 3. They're in the top 5 and the number one of these metrics. So I encourage your audience to go out there and take a look at the study and see exactly how well these states have done.
Good stuff, Chip. That's why we love having you on. You guys and gals do good work over there at Wallet Hub. Chip Lupo joining us yet again right here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, Chip. Make it a good one.
Always a pleasure, Guy. Have a great day.
You too, my friend. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, guys, just like that, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, it's no secret, depression now becoming more common among adults and adolescents right here in the U.S., but most are not getting therapy to help. That according to a new report from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As it currently stands, more than, get this, 1 in 8 people ages 12 and up in the U.S. have been depressed in recent years. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Dr. Ajua Smalls-Manty, back here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Nice to see you, Guy.
All right, this is disturbing. Yet again, a lot of folks suffering from depression. My first question to you is it just me, or does it seem like we kind of sweep it under the rug as a society right here in America?
I think a lot of people have an increased awareness of depression and people want to do something, but we are moving so fast in our day-to-day lives. We don't have time to sometimes address how we are feeling, what we are experiencing. So I'm glad that the CDC report came out that shows us that more people, unfortunately, 1 in 8 people are experiencing depression. But with increased awareness, that means there is increased availability of help and that people will hopefully feel more comfortable seeking help.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. 90% of adults have said that the country is now facing a mental health crisis. I don't think I've ever seen the numbers that high before.
That is really high. And I totally understand what people are saying, and I can even feel it myself. As I said earlier, we are moving at such a faster rate every single day, and that brings on stress. Right now, April is Stress Awareness Month, and stress can look like different things in different people. When people experience stress, they may become more anxious, thinking about what might happen. Some people might feel more depressed. And besides even just anxiety and depression, there are more mental health challenges that people are experiencing, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's bipolar disorder, whether it's substance use, because you're using more things to help you cope and it's not the right coping mechanism. So we definitely are experiencing more mental health challenges. And I really want to encourage anyone that is experiencing that to just take stock of where they are and not be scared to reach out for help.
Yeah, speaking up is key. It is truly concerning and something that we are seeing playing out time and time again. I don't want to align this with, let's say, school shootings or anything of that nature, but one would ponder, one would say, is this why perhaps we are seeing more school shootings as of late than, well, at least here in America, than we are seeing in a lot of other countries?
I think when it comes to school shootings, that is a separate issue in terms of what is causing people to do that, because people have often always felt stressed or upset about something. But one thing is that people never had the ability to take action or felt comfortable taking actions so grave and so terrible as a shooting. And so when it comes to school shootings, I don't want us to say, well, people are depressed, they're going to do that, because a lot of depressed people don't choose that as an option. And we know it's not the right thing to do. But we do have to recognize that there are some factors in people's mental health that might drive them to those actions, but it is not a reason to take those actions out. Those are decisions that people make with full knowledge and understanding of what they're doing. And so there are other things that we need to do as a society to prevent school shootings.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but according to the stats that I'm reading, women perhaps suffer more from depression more so than men. Is that correct?
That is true. And we find that a lot of times women might experience more depression because of the caretaker burden in our society that tends to fall more on women. In many societies, it does. And that adds a whole new level of stress beyond just taking care of yourself and your day to day, making sure that you have enough food, but you have to do that for other people as well. And so that is why we see increased levels of stress in women. One thing that the CDC found in their study is that women are reaching out for help. About 43% were reaching out for help. About a little bit less, around 33% or so of men were reaching out for therapy. And so while people are trying to get help, it's still less than half. And many more people could benefit from support, whether that is practical support from family and friends, whether that is from therapy. And for some people, you might even need medication. But there are many different ways to help with depression for all people, women, men, children alike.
So they say no question is a dumb question, and I'm trying to figure out a way how to pose it, and that is, how do I know that I'm suffering from depression? I could be in denial. What are some of the signs? What should I look for me to then look in the mirror and say, you know what, I got an issue that I really need to have resolved?
When we as psychiatrists diagnose somebody with depression, there are 9 criteria that we use. And those 9 criteria can range from your mood. Do you feel grilled? Do you have trouble concentrating? Has your appetite decreased? Are you having thoughts of not wanting to live anymore? A whole host of symptoms. And those are the things that the researchers did look at, the 9 different symptoms. But when you really need to think about, do I need help, is if your functioning in your day-to-day life is impacted. So if you find that you're no longer able to go to work, you're calling out more, or if you have to take care of kids and you're not doing as much as you used to, critical things are falling through the cracks, that is when it's time to say, all right, maybe I need to get help.
Yeah.
I need to figure out what's going on, and let's try to get back on track.
And is there anyone in particular that one should pick up the phone and call with regard to seeking that help?
I think the first place that people can start is if they recognize I am depressed, you can either start with your primary care physician, because a lot of people do, primary care offices do have resources for therapy. Your primary care doctor might recommend a medication if you have more symptoms in your body and how you're feeling depressed. But then if you also just need a general hotline, we have the 988 number that is called the National Crisis and National Suicide Hotline. But it's not only for that, they also provide a lot of resources for people in their local communities. So you can reach out to that number also to just get a general basis of help if you need it any time of the day.
Vital information. Very good. Yet again, we have been speaking with Dr. Ajwa Smalls-Manty, joining us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, well, people around the world will remember Pope Francis as a humble man that did not forget the less fortunate. Fox News correspondent Lauren Green takes a look back at his life and the legacy he leaves behind.
When the white smoke filled the air over the Vatican in March of 2013, it signaled Pope Francis had been elected to lead the Catholic Church. And almost from that moment, he signaled changes were coming. The first pontiff from Latin America, the first Jesuit, the first to call himself Francis, would be just a few of the new beginnings. Born Jorge Bergoglio in Buenos Aires on December 17, 1936, to Italian immigrant parents, he was the oldest of 5. The future Pope's father, Mario, worked for the railway, and his mother, Regina Savori, stayed at home. As a student, he had a variety of jobs, including working as a bouncer in a bar. In 1958, Bergoglio entered the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. He graduated with a degree in philosophy from the College of San Jose and San Miguel, and later taught literature and psychology. He was ordained a priest in 1969. In 1992, Pope John Paul II appointed him a bishop. 6 years later, he became Archbishop of Buenos Aires, a culturally diverse and economically challenged community. 3 years later, he was elevated to Cardinal, where he was known for taking public transportation instead of a private car. When Pope John Paul II died in 2005, he was among the cardinals who elected the German Joseph Ratzinger, who became Benedict XVI. 8 years later, the unthinkable. Benedict became the first pope in nearly 600 years to resign, sending shockwaves throughout not just Catholicism, but all around the world. For Benedict's successor, the cardinals chose the 76-year-old Bergoglio. It was a surprise to most, but not his fellow cardinals.
We spoke about him often because he was widely known and respected.
Always setting the example of his own philosophy that servants of the church should be humble and lead simpler lives. He paid his own bill at the hotel where he stayed during the conclave and turned down the palatial papal quarters in favor of a more modest residence at the Vatican. He also began speaking frankly about modern issues, famously saying, "Who am I to judge?" when asked about the sexual orientation of priests. During Holy Week ceremonies, he shocked traditionalists by washing the feet of women and non-Catholics. For his first international trip, the Holy Father traveled to his native continent, South America, visiting Brazil, the world's most Catholic country, for World Youth Day. Celebrating Mass before 3 million people on Rio de Janeiro's famed Copacabana beach. Passionate about the environment, his signature encyclical Laudato Si outlined how global warming hurts the less fortunate around the world. He took a pilgrimage to North America, first stopping in Cuba, saying Mass to thousands.
At the home of the brave.
Then on to the United States, addressing a joint session of Congress and visiting with President Barack Obama at the White House. In New York, he spoke before the United Nations General Assembly and held Mass at Madison Square Garden.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
In the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, he attended the World Meeting of the Families Festival and met privately with victims of sex abuse. Francis also defended Islam while condemning the terror group ISIS. In the wake of the deadly terror attacks on Christmas in Egypt, Francis traveled to Cairo, extending the hand of fellowship to Muslims. Francis also became the first pope to visit Iraq on March 5, 2021. On his trip, he met with Iraq's top Ayatollah and urged peace. At the age of 84, his health started to decline, first undergoing surgery to remove part of his colon for what the Vatican described as a planned procedure, and later suffering from a small fracture in his knee. During a trip to Canada, the Pope required the help of a wheelchair and walker, telling reporters he could no longer travel like he used to and may possibly retire one day. In late 2022, his predecessor, Pope Benedict, died, marking the end of an unprecedented 9-year-long arrangement of 2 popes living side by side in the Vatican gardens. Pope Francis presided over Benedict's funeral and said losing Benedict felt like he had lost a dad. Francis continued to battle opposition as he worked to make the Catholic Church more inclusive. He said he welcomed the criticism because it meant there was freedom to speak. His priestly motto had always been a Latin phrase that recognizes God's mercy and sovereignty, a sentiment that guided his ministry and will now be his legacy. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
Yet again, Pope Francis gone at the age of 88. Welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone. It is now 1:47. We are following a developing story out of the White House where, according to NPR, the White House has now begun the process of looking for a new Secretary of Defense. This comes as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth continues to find himself, well, in controversy. NPR has confirmed with the same official that Hegseth shared details ahead of last month's Yemen strikes with his wife and brother in a signal chat on his personal phone, minutes after being updated by a senior U.S. military official. The news of the second signal group chat about the mission was first reported by the New York Times. Earlier today on Fox and Friends, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had this to say.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring, so they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job, and the president stands strongly behind him.
Yet again, that was this morning on Fox and Friends. Shortly thereafter, NPR releasing the article stating that yet again, they are looking for a new defense secretary, they being the White House. Karoline Leavitt then posting this on X. The NPR story is total fake news based on one anonymous source who clearly has no idea what they are talking about. As the president said this morning, he stands strongly behind the defense secretary. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is political analyst Timothy Allen Simon back here on the Live Zone. Timothy, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me back. Yeah.
All right, this is somewhat breaking news. We are now getting reports, according to NPR, that the White House is indeed now looking for a new defense secretary. This amid all the controversy surrounding Mr. Hegseth. Somewhat surprising to you?
Not that it's NPR reporting it. NPR and the public broadcast system has been a target of President Trump. So that does not surprise me. When I served as appointment secretary under Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, the term we use is you're becoming a distraction to the administration. And I think that is the risk here, that Hegseth is getting so much attention and naturally is probably causing concerns from our allies. The fact that he is being so cavalier in his communication protocol to the point where, yes, I do think the White House is looking at this very closely, but I'm not convinced that he'll be fired. If anything, the term being used, you'll be given the offer to resign, which is different than actually being terminated.
Yeah, yet again, the White House press secretary stating on that post we saw on X that this is fake news. We have seen that time and time again coming from the Trump administration. Timothy, I got to ask you. So you and I, we have a meeting, we chit-chat about, let's say, private affairs within that meeting at whatever organization we happen to be at. I don't think I would necessarily immediately following that meeting then hop on my phone to go about to text my wife and, or in this case, my brother as well about the information that was shared. Is that something that we should expect from the defense secretary?
Absolutely not. The interesting thing about this is that this is a man who attacked diversity, equity, inclusion, and just kind of created an issue of competence regarding when there is a woman or minority in a leadership position. And look what we have right now. Yes, he was being onboarded at the time, or at least some of his staff was, but from all indications, there's a secure Department of Defense communications protocol that should have been utilized at that time. I think the deeper question is, why did Secretary Hegseth opt to use this portal of communications, even though it's encrypted? Again, going back to the issues that then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had, regarding her communications. So I think there are, this will be something that I think the Democrats can dig their teeth in, particularly on the basis of national defense, national security, and Mr. President, what are you going to do to secure this nation's national security? Yes, this is a proxy war with the Houthis of Yemen. The real target or adversary is Iran, but be that as it may, it runs the risk of expanding into other areas. And anytime a president puts the lives of the young women and men at risk, that is what we call national security.
We've all heard the saying, if one actually has a mishap, shame on you. The second time around, shame on me. Do you think there will be a third time around?
Again, this is a man that has had a history of mismanagement that's recorded in the nonprofits that he ran. He has a very brash style about him that is not typical of the military command. It appears he has a large ego too, which is to be expected for someone to rise to the rank that he now is, but in his rise, he didn't have what some would say the proper training or maturing to lead a large organization and understand you are going to be in a magnifying glass every move you make, not just by the American people who have an expectation of professionalism for the Secretary of Defense, but the world at large, because you are leading the most powerful and largest military in the world.
Yet again, NPR stating the White House has begun the process of looking for a new Secretary of Defense. We saw White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denying that in so many words, saying fake news. It's a bunch of hogwash. Timothy will end with this, and I have literally a minute left, and that is credibility. Should the Secretary of Defense decide to resign and or in this case be let go, where would that leave the White House and the Trump administration?
Well, he's still in his, first 100 days of so, give or take. I think it would just be a case where a confirmed Secretary of Defense didn't work out if that decision was made. I'm still not convinced that the president is going to remove Secretary Hegseth. This may be a ploy to give the American people the belief that he is looking because of his concerns for national security. But historically, if you're loyal to President Trump, you typically stay with President Trump.
Yet again, Timothy Allen Simon, political strategist, joining us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. All right, folks, that just about does it for us right here on the Live Zone. We do it each and every Monday through Friday, 12 noon till 2 p.m. Tell a friend, bring a friend, and we'll do it again. The Take coming up next right here on Fox 5.